Hi, everyone. Welcome. Carl Steinbeck here tonight on a Monday night. Just want to jump on tonight and talk about a couple of motions filed today by Donna's defense lawyers. And the motions have to do with two different issues. One had to do with setting her bond, a request for a bond review, as well as an Arthur hearing, which gets into whether somebody that is facing a life sentence like Donna Adelson is for the murder of Professor Dan Markell, whether she's going to be able to be released on strict conditions. And she's asking to be released in Leon County area, not to go further down into Miami, and some other restrictions as a court may deem necessary. But that was one of the main issues that was there that was filed today in court. The other one had to do with a motion to suppress. This one was very limited in nature. This had to do with the, if you recall, like what a lot of people refer to as the hot mic moment, when Charlie was talking to Donna after he was convicted of murdering Professor Markell. And he was talking to his mom at length, making a lot of complaints about the people of Tallahassee that were on the jury. And they were basically dumbed down to a fifth grade level. And that's why they wrongfully convicted him. And so what happened was Charlie hung up the phone, and then Donna still continued to talk to the folks in the room there. That included Harvey and an attorney and attorney's husband and whatnot. And so the what happened was the defense counsel were trying to keep that out. So they're worried about that kind of talk and the language that was used that could be incriminating and used by the prosecution against Donna. They want to keep that out. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and do something I have had nothing in the past like this before, but I'm actually going to present the document for you so we can sort of go through this real quick. I'm not going to read it word for word. I don't want to cover this too much tonight, but this is what it looked like. There's an actual filing here. You can see they filed it on the 7th, which it looks like, okay, maybe it was filed a couple days ago. But anyway, I just got word of it today. John notified me of it today. So John's my brother, and so here's what we have is they just go through the procedural history. They talk about how Donna was arrested, denied bond, and they basically go through how she was, in the general statement of facts, how she was in the situation that she's got herself in, where she's charged with first-degree murder among a couple other charges as well. And they talk about some of the other co-defendants that have been processed and convicted. And they mentioned here in the last paragraph 12 how she was basically just attempting to vacation in Vietnam, a country that's not extradite more than 9 years after the homicide. So they're trying to make it look like, hey, she was just going on vacation, judge. There's no reason why we can't let her out. And then she goes into a lot of lengthy stuff here on the incarceration issues. So keep in mind, there's two attorneys that had filed this, Zellman and Fulford. Those are two local to Tallahassee area attorneys for Don Adelson. And so what they allege here is that she's a 75-year-old woman with typical medical issues, exacerbated by the conditions of confinement. And they go on to complain about a whole lot of stuff here. I don't want to go over every little detail, but they talk about every little ache and pain, that she has sensitive ear canals, and she has some pain in her back and neck, and extends to her hand and leg and things of that nature. So she also has a shortness of breath that others are noticing that. And they go on this whole other second page here that's covering this issue. And they're also talking about the lack of proper medical care. They complain about the doctors not having the right forms there for her to get what she needs for the next day to get a Band-Aid, for example. Here it talks about a Band-Aid. And the nurse told her to wrap an injury in toilet paper because it was bleeding. And anyway, she just goes on and on about this, this horrible care. And in any event, they're saying basically she can't get proper medical care within Leon County facility. And that's why they're trying to use that as a basis to argue that she should also be released. Another point that they're trying to make here, you see under 14, is attorney-client privilege. And basically they're trying to say that they cannot connect to her by the phone. It's very difficult to have communications with your client. But, the thing is, what I would say to that is, then go down and visit your client. There's plenty of access you have as an attorney to go visit your client. And I'm sure Donna would prefer that the lawyers actually show up as well. So just talking to her on a phone call, is not as comforting for the client. I can assure you that. And think about it now against his backdrop. Well, let me go on a little bit more. She also talks about lack of sleep here. So she's basically saying she only has 2 hours to sleep at night. And that's really ridiculous because she basically, after they have breakfast at 3:30 in the morning, she can go back to bed. And so the physical abuse she talks about here as well. She goes on to talk about how the fact that she's having physical abuse and intimidation, extortion threats by an inmate. She doesn't mention who the inmate is, but she talks about how she's frightened, scared, and does what she can to avoid this woman who's trying to get her for commissary money. And then she talks about some other incidences. And when Donna asked why this had happened to her, and then the inmate replied something about her being a killer. So I won't repeat any profanity, but the you get the gist of it here. The most severe and frightening incident to date, however, they allege was a couple months ago, and again, she's saying it had to do in the pod, and somebody then grabbed her left arm and violently jerked her up from behind and yanked her in a direction that that she knew Miss Adelson got the canteen from, and that she was going to get it for her too as well. So she's being roughed up, is what she's basically alleging here through her attorneys, and basically she's bossing her around. So Donna's supposedly very afraid of this person, apparently too afraid to mention anything for a couple months now. And of course, she has new attorneys. This apparently happened right in the middle of when she was trying to hire new attorneys on and whatnot. But this looks like she's claiming she had such terrible pain that it continues to this day. So she's and then complaining about the treatment that she's getting medically is not adequate to take care of her. And then go over to the top of the next page as well, talking about how the staff is acting to actively punish Donna as well. So she's trying to make this case out to be that she's just, like being abused by the inmates, by the medical staff, by the jail staff, just having a horrible existence. And now she's in solitary confinement. That's what this next section of the motion covers. And now she's talking about the physician's assistant is also not taking care of her properly, and she's been attacked by a fellow inmate. And anyway, she talks just ad nauseum about different complaints about how she's being treated, and the jail supervisors are supposed to protect her, and they're not doing it. And so, therefore, the only way they can protect her is to put her in physical isolation. And when you consider Donna's personality, she has to be around people and talk to them. And now she's going to be in a lockdown mode, and she's going to have virtually only an hour to get out of her cell. And the rest of the time, she's going to be, subject to a lot of invasion of privacy issues where she's having to be seen going to the bathroom and whatnot, as well as a shower by numerous jail staff. They have to be walking by or supervising her. So she's making this case out to be that she's not doing well at all. And that's something that I had been saying a while back, which is when she first got arrested and put in Leon County Jail. I talked about how it's really tough to be in a confinement facility, especially when you're elderly, especially when you've never been there before, especially when you're over 70 years old. Even though she was in generally good health for a 70-plus-year-old person, being away from your family and normal routines of life. And think of it, she had a luxury life. She was living there in Miami Beach area, and now she's being extricated up there to this nasty jail cell. They described the food as pretty terrible as well through attorneys. So she's making this case out to be that she doesn't need to be there. It's not helping the case. She's not going to be helping her attorneys prepare for trial. And she says here she's no risk to the community. She's never been in any kind of trouble before with the law, no criminal history or disciplinary history there during Leon County time as well, where she's been there for 14 months. Think about it, folks. She's been there now for 14 months. Her trial is still not starting till June, so she has several months more to go. And then the interesting thing is they say she's not a flight risk because she doesn't have a passport. And what they failed to mention is that she had also tried to flee the country with her husband Harvey back when she got arrested in November of 2023. And then they go into these legal arguments, and they basically talk about how the court does have authority to consider different factors. Here's some of the factors here on 31 that the court can look at. And nature and circumstance of the offense, murder, first degree murder, doesn't get any more serious than that, unless it's capital, of course. The weight of the evidence against the defendant, the judge is going to find that to be strong as well. The defendant's family ties, length of residence in the community. She's not been in Leon County for long, and also the fact that she tried to flee the country is not going to. That alone is going to be huge against her. The fact that she's also been suicidal before or made suicidal gestures, that also can come out as well. Remember, she was caught on some of the jail calls with Charlie making some references that she was just going to end her life. So that's another reason not to let her out as well. So then you look at the past conduct, and they talk about previous flights to avoid prosecution. That's going to, like I say, that's a dagger right there for her. And then the nature and probability of the danger which she poses to the community. The fact is, they have strong evidence she aided in being a principal in the murder of Professor Markell. So that makes you a high risk, even though you're 75. I mean, that's a very dangerous person that would be released on the streets. And now the nature and probability of intimidation and danger to victims. Now here, we're talking about the it could be any current victims for this murder case, the Markells, or it could be others as well. And so the Markells do not live in the local area or Florida, but you just don't want to let somebody like her get out, because you never know what she might do. You see all over the United States in the news, different times there's been a murder-suicide pact, things of that nature that can really take a nasty turn. And then any other court that the factors the court considers can be factored in as well. So I'm just saying right now, it's going to be just like Charlie's. This is going to be the same kind of thing. The Georgia and Sarah, the prosecutors are going to present the same kind of evidence, and they're going to use that. The judge is going to use that kind of evidence to basically just say she's not going to be released. And so no matter what she complains about, the medical conditions and the threats and all that, she's going to be in lockdown mode there in solitary confinement. And solitary confinement is very tough mentally. I can assure you that, because what happens is when you don't talk to people and you're just in a cell and she's not attending any of these activities that keep you mentally stimulated, she's just going to be sitting there on her bunk and staring at the walls. It's going to really eat on her, and then she's going to be wanting to talk to her attorneys even more. And attorneys they're trying to get ready for trial, so they don't want to have to be like Rashbaum was and talking to her for hours every day. They want to prepare and talk to her on a limited basis, and so she's going to be very frustrated with that. And then when she stops to reflect on the fact that, think about what this did to her, it destroyed her entire family. The very thing that she took part in this murder for was to have exclusive access to the two grandsons, and now she doesn't have access to them. They're not visiting her there. They're probably not even talking to her. They're now in Texas with her mom, Wendy. Wendy, her beloved daughter, is now no longer talking to her as well for the 14 months she's been in there. There's been no indications that she's talked to Wendy. Then Charlie, since he's been sent away and convicted, and he's up in South Dakota, there's most likely not any conversations there. And of course, there's a strange son up in the Northeast, a doctor, eldest son of Harvey and Donna. That's estranged as well. So basically, her whole family life is imploded. The only person she has any contact with is Harvey, who's like apparently still 7 hours away, and perhaps he's there spending more time in Leon County on a temporary basis to visit her. But the bottom line is, when you think about the backblast ramifications that are so tragic for her life, she had it so easy and such a cush life of luxury, and she forfeited all that when she took part in this murder plot. So with that, I can just conclude here that this will be denied. The judge will, he may do some inquiry saying, how bad is her medical situation, and what do we have? Do we need to give her any special appointments or whatever on the outside? And they can take her via the jailers to a different medical appointment if they don't have the specialized treatment in the jail. But again, she's trying to bash the medical system there, the jailers, like she did when she first got brought to Leon County Jail, and she had her previous attorney Descalza from the Miami area making all these complaints against the jail. So that amounted to nothing. And so here you see the proposed conditions of release. You can see there, as I mentioned earlier, she's not asking to be outside of Leon County, and she's willing to even have a curfew, and she does want to reside with her husband, and where in a hotel, those kind of things we don't know what she's proposing. And then they do include any other conditions. So I don't see any of this having any possibility of being granted. I think Judge Everett sees how these Adelsons conduct themselves and how they are not going to hold themselves accountable, and they're not taking this serious as they should. And in any event, this probably will last a couple hours, and we'll see that in the near future as well. I'll cover that as well. So let's go ahead and jump over then to the next motion. This is a motion to suppress. As I said, this had to do with the hot mic situation, and this one, the prosecution has a burden of proof to show that this is an exception for warrantless interception of a call. This is talking about a jail call here, and if you recall the way the jails work, and there's in regards to inmates making phone calls, both parties are informed every time a call is made that this is being recorded. So the fact is, there's no expectation of privacy. It's upfront. And Donna's done this call and taken part of this call and waited for that instruction many, many times when Charlie was spending his year plus awaiting trial. So that they're saying here in the motion that Ms. Adelson was present in her home with her husband, attorney Susan Brotman, and Ms. Brotman's husband, Richard Chagrin. And after Charles ended the call, at the end of Charles' call, the call dropped, and she continued speaking with the folks there that were in her home. But what happened was that Charlie dropped off the line, but Donna didn't hang up the phone. And so Donna is trying to claim here, when they discuss the law, this has to do with different statutes and the expectations of privacy under the Constitution and different states. We always have these laws that protect expectations of privacy. And here they're trying to say that it's an unlawful intercept. But this one here is going to be, and they go through what reasonable expectation of privacy is. They cite some statutes and case law, but none of it has to do with a jail communication when you've actually been warned and told. Nothing here is private. Everything is going to be public domain of the sheriff's office there. And so I think here that then when they say in paragraph 26 where the communication is unlawfully intercepted, then there's an exclusionary rule. Well, it wasn't unlawfully intercepted. Donna just frankly failed to hang up the phone. If you fail to hang up the phone, it's sort of like if you do a pocket dial and you wind up having somebody listen into the call, you can say, well, I didn't intend to call this person, and they listened into what I was saying and doing. Well, sorry, that's that's something that you waived by making an error in how you're handling your phone. So I think the same kind of thing is going to happen here. So anyway, I think this is not a very lengthy motion. This won't take very long, but you can see Attorney Zellman and also Fulford, they need to do this. So if you have any concerns about whether these motions will be granted, I don't see that happening at all. I think that the case law is not something that is going to support the motion to suppress, and there's not a case on point exactly. So I think the judge is not going to go out on a limb and make new law to exclude this evidence. I think what it also shows is that this is something that the defense counsel are very concerned about. They don't want that information coming in on what Donna was talking about with the parties there. And so I think that they are very much expecting that Georgia and Sarah are going to introduce that hot mic moment, and so they want to keep that damaging information out. As far as the Arthur hearing, again, in summary, because this is such a serious crime, because Don has already tried to flee the country before, and based on the gruesome nature of the crime, the fact that the Adelsons have a lot of money and they could hire people to do things, the fact that Donna has also threatened to end her life when talking to Charlie, and so I think that also if you look at her mental condition when she first got to the jail, she's not a good fit for jail to interact with other inmates. But the bottom line is she's too much a danger to society to be released, and so I think she's absolutely going to be denied her motion to have any kind of bond conditions change, and therefore she's going to have to wait this out until the beginning of June when her trial starts. So the months are going by pretty fast here, but several more months for her. It will also be something that mentally, when you're isolated like that, it does deteriorate a normal person. So somebody of her age and conditions medically, I think she's still overall probably better than a lot of folks her age. But this last year plus in confinement is definitely aging her. I think we've seen that, and it also affects her mental capacity as well. So anyway, that's what my prediction is for this. And so with that, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Q and A's now. And let's see, you got to figure out how to remove these motions here. Here's a comment. So if you have comments now, just go ahead and start them. I'm not going to go to the top of the live stream from 23 minutes ago. So if you want to throw in your questions now, and as I ask to have your questions posed with a red question mark beforehand and after, so I can distinguish that from intra chatter among y'all. So, okay, happy go lucky. You're asking, do you think she might turn on Wendy, saying that she seems to be losing it? I think that that's an internal battle she has in her mind. I think she is seething with anger of the fact that Wendy is the one that's totally benefited from this. Wendy is living the life like a lotto winner in many respects, as Charlie complained to Donna a long time ago, back in 2016. So, in any event, I think that this is something that is just eating on her. So, besides that solitary confinement, that's the number one, probably one of the main things she's thinking of is how Wendy set this whole thing up, and that's why she's not blaming herself for taking part of this, but she's definitely seething mad. Um, Okay, Jane Kreisman, you're saying last time I predicted Wednesday arrest by the end of this July. I was counting the days. What happened? Well, that's something I was expecting the prosecution to do. I did not know that they would be this weak and not sizing up the evidence property. And I expected them to be more robust than they are. I would say that the uh, it is very disappointing to all those that have followed this case and are concerned about the lack of justice. The fact that she's still able to be just a named co-conspirator, but not a charged and indicted co-conspirator, is very frustrating. I think it makes this case one of the most preposterous cases in true crime that you can follow. Not just currently, but I think in many decades, you won't find something this bizarre, nor will you find something where the prosecution has been so slow dragging their feet. Watercolor Mom, you're saying, I know you've been asked so many times, but is there any new indication that Wendy is preparing to be arrested next? I'd love to think she's living a jittery life while she waits. Uh, you know, I I think that maybe she's just thinking she's above the law, and I think she is thinking as much as she can that she didn't take part in the actual killing. She only drove by, and whatever else she did to helped plan this and provide information to Charlie is something that she's just trying to block out of her mind. And so I think that she's just thinking, and she's thinking as much as she can in her mind, an arrest will never happen. Law and Lit, you're asking, do I think her lawyers would have filed these motions about her pushing to do it? I think part of it is the push from Donna, but I think part of it also is that they're doing it because that's what they really need to do to suppress evidence. They should suppress all the damning evidence. That's something that lawyers do, especially if there's a murder case. That's your best hope on this case because there's really nothing. If all this evidence comes in, Donna's definitely going to be convicted. So the only really hope they have is if they can keep this evidence excluded, which will be unsuccessful. So it's good to see lawyers that are aggressive and fighting for their clients. So nobody wants to see a lawyer that's asleep at the switch or a lawyer that represents somebody when they're conflicted up to their eyeballs, and because it just doesn't lend itself to the case sticking on appeal. And so as we saw Donna lose her attorney Rashbaum the day of her trial because of conflict, that's not good for anybody. So that's why judges and prosecutors, as well as the defense attorneys, need to make sure that there's not conflicts to hijack the case. So you need to have competent counsel. Otherwise, everybody suffers, including the victims. Tay, you're saying, I think there's a method behind the madness regarding the prosecution of Wendy. I trust Georgia's strategy. Okay, well, that's your choice. And I would just say that if you trust a strategy of not knowing how Rashomon was conflicted, they should have raised that issue when Rashomon was first retained by Donna and showed up to court. That should have been run to the ground, and they should have asked to have him be excused as counsel. They should also ask him to be excused as counsel from Charlie, knowing that they were going to go after Donna down the road, and had and known that there's going to be a conflict between Rashbaum representing both parties. Keep in mind, he's representing Donna since 2016, so many years of that relationship, where she described as her sort of being like a mother figure to him when he's talking on Survivor. So I think that the lack of strategy and understanding the second, third order effects of a lot of stuff that has been going on in these cases is very troubling. And it's not over yet. So Charlie's case has not been decided on appeal yet, and I've been saying that I think that he was denied conflict-free counsel, which is required by the Constitution. So I may be wrong on that, but I would expect that's what's going to happen. So in any event, so if Charlie's case gets reversed, Donna's gets kicked down the road. I mean, it's 9 years, 10 years. What is it going to be? 14, 15 years after the murder happened, that the Adelsons finally get their appeals exhausted and they're all convicted. I mean, the boys will probably be college graduates before this happens. So if you're trusting Georgia's strategy, I beg to differ. So enough said on that. Patricia, you're asking, some commentators opine there isn't sufficient digital evidence, e.g. cell tower pings, to convict Wendy. Is it a strategy to hope something will come out of the DA Adelson trial? They don't need to have a strategy on Donna's trial and have some evidence come out there. I think what they have is enough of Wendy's actions that indicate her her guilt of this as well. And if you look at all the indicators, I would say anybody who's opining that there's enough digital evidence just doesn't know the facts of the case good enough. So, or else they haven't had successful prosecutions and defenses of tough cases. And so there's a lot of folks that can hold themselves out as lawyers, but most lawyers are not trial lawyers, and most of the time, if you have a trial lawyer, they're not doing criminal law. So unless you got really a criminal law specialist, they don't really and they know they've done a deep dive of the evidence. They're not going to be adequately prepared to explain the strengths and weaknesses of any particular case, especially one that has this many hours and hours and I would say months of review to really go over all the evidence. So, um, I've gone on court TV and they only give me, like an hour or two notice. Hey, do you want to talk about this case? Here's some stuff in the news about it. And I'll do it. And, I can review the testimony and I can make some snap opinions on the credibility of different witnesses just by looking at it. Not very much, but at like maybe 10 minutes or whatnot. So, um, but bottom line is there is enough evidence there. You don't need cell tower pings from Wendy. They failed to ask for those back when this murder first happened. So, but there's enough indicators of her guilt, including her actions, including her book, where she talks about that parroted her life and a lot of the contempt and hatred she had for Dan in that book that she was projecting onto the main characters of that. So, anyway, I'll just leave it at that for now. Okay, Matt, you're saying I've gone from supporting the prosecution of the Adelson trial to simping for Karen Reed. So that's a case I am not. It's sort of like the opposite of the what's going on in the Adelson case. The Adelson case, the prosecution has been slow and many times ineffective. They haven't been strategic minded enough, and they've let these Adelsons be slipping through the cracks for too many years. And so now, if you want to call me a simp for Karen Reed, okay. I would say also the if you know what the jury came back on that, they did not find a second degree murder case would be sufficient, and based on the evidence, and there's just not enough evidence there. So I'm not simping for anybody. I'm calling facts like they are. So I would say, Matt, that if you want to disagree with me, fine, but I'm not simping for anybody. I'm just calling it like it is based on my experience. And from that one, I had to, it didn't take long to see that there was a lot of problems with that case. And the bottom line is, if you look at any other attorney that's talked about this case, I know there's several that talked about it, and they are even from Massachusetts, and they say the prosecution's out of control. So I think the truth will bear out. So if you think I'm some kind of a simp, that's fine. I think the evidence is going to bear out. So I'm just going to speak truth, and I'm not going to be listening to any folks that want to try to put me under a rock. Oh, thank you, young black economist. You're saying I look at cases objectively and based on empirical information. What makes you think I'm trustworthy? I am trying to be trustworthy. No one's paying me to say anything. I'm not part of any defense team for anybody. I'm just speaking the truth where it is, and if no matter who's right or wrong, I'm just calling it like it is from my experience. Okay, so I would handle both these cases that I'm covering now very differently, and and the outcomes would be different as well. So, and I would say adjust outcomes. So I would say we'll see how the evidence bears out, but I think in the end, what's going to happen is, what I'm predicting is going to happen in the Adelsons, and in the end, the prosecutor there, Campbell, is going to wind up realizing he's got to go forward and arrest more Adelsons, or the job's not done. Unless Wendy is arrested and prosecuted, the legacy of Jack Campbell is going to be that he was the guy that was too afraid to take on the Adelsons, and he dragged his feet, and this thing took on forever a life of its own. And that's a lot of frustrations of the people. That's why people are talking about this case. And one of the reasons John got me to agree to talk about it as well, because there should be outrage and frustration about what's going on here. Yeah, I don't really want to cover much on the case with Karen Reed tonight. So yeah, please be respectful. So you guys can we can have intellectual discussions about things we agree and disagree with. If we all agreed with everything, we probably wouldn't have anything to really listen to, right? We could just all turn everything off. So um, I'm not I'm not beholden to anything except what I see as the truth. Okay, that's my commitment to anything I'm doing on this channel. So I don't. There's some evidence out there that courts can make it look like Karen might have done something. I'm not discounting that. I'm just saying what you need as a prosecutor to be able to prove your case beyond reasonable doubt is this. It's just not there. Maya Rodriguez Sorensen, also an attorney, is asking, do you still have faith that prosecution will arrest the rest of the Adelsons? I do. And I think that despite the setbacks and the lack of knowledge of things of importance that has affected Rashbaum, I think even if Charlie's case gets reversed on appeal, I think the fact that there's been such a mounting following of this case in the not only national but also world media. Look at all the folks we have from the UK, from Europe, Australia, South Africa, all over the world. People are following this case and just scratching their head, going, "What the heck is going on there in Tallahassee?" So I think the pressure is not going to allow them to do anything but do the right thing. Bugs Bunny brother, you're asking if there's any geriatric prisons and jails for older criminals. No, there's not. There's not one for jails. If Donna has medical conditions, then they can escort her to a local facility if she needs specialists. If she needs something more round the clock care, they would have some kind of state hospital that also has a mental ward and also a ward of other type things, whether it's orthopedics or whatnot that she's complaining about. So, but then she's really going to be pulled away from her attorneys, and so I don't see them wanting to go down that route. But you never know. I think she's really desperate right now. I do think that if she got released, I think there's a good chance that her and Harvey might do some kind of pact, as she was talking about in the jail calls. Uh, Demetra Brown Hendrickson, you're saying, how come Donna's just now voicing these allegations that happened in jail? Well, it takes the attorneys to actually be the ones to raise it. And maybe Donna was afraid if she says the name party or parties who were intimidating her and threatening her and assaulting her. So if she does rat them out, then she can probably have a lot of payback. So that was she was worried about. But I think it came to the point that when she was in solitary confinement, then they decided to go ahead and let all this come out because now she's protected from those other inmates. But I think by them raising this now, even though she hasn't raised these other inmates, I don't think she's ever going to go back in general population. I think she's going to be locked down for the duration until she has her time in trial. Okay, let's see. Okay, let's see. All right, moving on here. I'm just trying to get to stuff about the Adelson's case. Watercolor Mama is asking, does Katie McBanois' testimony still come into play enough that she could still get her sentence reduced in exchange for her testimony? Yes, she's not done testifying. So I think that once she's done testifying and however many trials it takes, that is going to be the time that her sentence is reduced. So it's not going to be reduced piecemeal here and there based on, well, she testified against Wendy this trial, she testified against Donna this one, and she's already testified against Charlie. And if Charlie gets a retrial, then she's going to get maybe double credit for that one because she was vital in both. It wasn't her fault that there was a mistrial. So, in any event, yeah, I think she will get a reduction in the end. I think she's helped enough to get something less than life without parole. So I think she will get parole in the end, and that's something that is normal based on the way criminal law works. You got to sometimes deal with even murderers to be able to get all the ones that are guilty. Harley D, you're asking, did you ever get a chance to watch the AA Legal Focus video I was on? Judy and I tested a solid theory of what Wendy possibly did the day of Dan's murder. I did not. So if you want to send me a link to that, you can send it to my law firm account or the Jury Trial Mentor email, and I will take a look at that. Wow, Copa, that's a great point. Because we've talked about this a number of times. Like, why didn't they just move up to Tallahassee? They didn't have money. They could have stayed there. and come and gone and see enough of the kids, and also take had the best of both worlds, and then had the kids down there longer periods in the summer and all that. It could have been a happy, harmonious life, and but you're saying that the motion that has Donna wanting to stay in Tallahassee with her husband. She should have thought about that 11 years ago. Yeah, that is so true. How tragedy. Um, so anyway, it's it's just talk about setting yourself up for failure, man. That is like unreal, unreal. I can't think of another situation other than how the Adelsons set themselves up like this. How Charlie just had everything going for him and it was destroyed. That's even then you look at Kitty McBanwell. She could have gotten out of jail free to take care of her kids, and she's going to fall on her sword in life for the Adelsons. So it makes no sense. But that's what makes this case so bizarre and interesting to follow, and have such a strong pursuit for seeing justice actually pan out in the end. Yeah, Bisky agree. It's sad because people aren't thinking the consequences of those actions, especially murder. I mean, all these Adelsons, no one that said, "Hey, it's not worth it. We don't want to run around knowing that we did such a horrible deed and having to look the grandsons in the eye or the nephew or my my boys in the eyes and tuck them in bed every night, knowing that this is what we did to their dad." Larissa Harris, you're saying you have doubts about them going after Wendy after the delay with Donna. Well, that's fine. I just think that they have to realize how strong the evidence is. They're going one at a time, despite that being so just I think a miscarriage of justice in and of itself. But they'll get to them one by one. Dog discussions. Can I give you my opinion on Ellen Greenberg case one day? That one's definitely a murder case. They ruled out a suicide. She'd been stabbed like 23 times, I think it is, in the front and back of the neck and in her back. And it was a gruesome murder. And they're trying to claim that she did that as a suicide. I mean, you can't make this stuff up. It's just another one of these cases that's so bizarre. Tay, you're asking, will there be danger by Latin kings in prison for Donna? Or you're saying that is, I'm sorry. And so I think she's going to have anybody and everybody is going to be looking at her as a money bags that they want commissary for or other favors on the outside for. So, yeah, she's gonna have a rough time in prison, much worse than she's having in Leon County Jail. You're asking, can they prosecute Wendy for perjury? She didn't perjure herself when she had state immunity. Didn't she purchase it? Yeah, she did multiple times. They got enough there to go after her, and so, but if they don't, then that means they're just not aggressive prosecutors. So, can you imagine if they had the vengeance of prosecution going after the Adelsons as they do other cases around the country? Wow, that would be such a difference. Well, I wouldn't be covering the case, number one. That's the only reason I got onto this whole thing is my brother show me what was going on in this case, and I got so outraged that I was willing to go on a video with him on YouTube. All right, just jumping ahead here. You're asking, will Donna's calls be released to public like Charlie's? I think in the end they will. I think just for right now that they don't want to have any more public scrutiny over the conversations because they are very enlightening and embarrassing. There's so many hours of tapes to release, so I think that in the end we will see those, but I think it's going to be after all the trials are over with. Junebug, you're saying, but so much time has gone on by the time we get Wendy. What are the chances of them being successful, even if they do go after us? Well, the evidence is still there. The evidence, as long as they got the good witnesses available, like Jeff Lacasse, he's you know such a huge important witness, and he's going to cooperate. He's got a great memory, and he's not impeachable. He's rock solid as a witness for the state. So they got it. They got also the actions of Wendy that happened in days, months, weeks, and during this this case, including her testimony to Detective Isom the day of the actual murder effort. So they got enough there, and her going to the crime scene is a huge one, very huge one. And so it's gonna come to a point where she's convicted. It's just gonna take longer time, unfortunately. Uh, Godzilla, you're asking, will Charlie be released if he gets a new trial? No, it'll be the same kind of thing. He'll be trying to ask for another Arthur hearing, just like Donna did. And so in the end, it's not going to matter. He's going to be held in the Leon County Jail awaiting trial. So in the end, he's never going to be released. So it's gonna be something that's going to burn up more of the Adelson's assets. Yeah, Patricia, you're asking, can an inmate be compelled to testify? Florida has a statute where if you're subpoenaed by the state, they give that limited immunity, but you do have to comply, and otherwise they could hold you in contempt. The judge could do that. So yeah, they can force folks to do that, even guilty folks. Sydney Collin, you're saying over 10 years and when he remains free speaks volumes to how inadequate the prosecutors are. That's totally my conclusion as well. This would not be happening in I would say most cities in America. I'm really convinced of that. Yeah, Jeannie Garnett. When he's living up in somewhere in the Austin area, and that's all I know about it. So she was able to leave Florida, and that you think just like just like how Donna and Harvey made an effort to flee the country. Wendy didn't have to rush at it. She was able to take her sweet time and make an actual physical move with household belonging and stuff here to Texas, and that didn't incentivize an expedited prosecution by the state's attorney's office. Granted, they can still have her arrested here and have her be brought back via extradition to Florida to face the murder charges there, but it just makes you really scratch your head and wonder what are these people thinking. All right, so let's see if you guys greetings also to Ireland there. Donna goes to trial on the 3rd of June. Jury selection should be over for about 3-4 days, and they're going to start the witnesses right after that and their arguments. Yes, Melissa Navon, my opinion is that once Donna's convicted, Wendy will be arrested. It's just so painstakingly slow and frustrating to see that happening. Janie Garner's asking, any news about the boys? No, I'm trying to let them have their own privacy. I don't want to talk about that. So I don't know, but even if I did, I would keep it very limited. I have heard some chatter about it. I think it's been on other channels like Survivor and whatnot, but I just want to get into that level of detail. Okay, Jamie, you're curious about what Dan Roshbaum is up to. He's the attorney that was for Charlie and also for Donna. Has he just gone back to work like normal, or was his practice at all affected? Well, he'd be facing an inquiry from the state ethics committee that investigates complaints against attorneys' ethical behavior. And so I think he's going to be fine until that board makes an inquiry and determination on what they recommend to the Supreme Court of Florida. And from there, that could upset his practice if they want to take an action more than just a reprimand. They could suspend him for days, weeks, months, years, or permanently. Excuse me. I just don't think they're very tough on much anything down there in Florida. For attorneys, and the way things going on in Miami there, I think they're really used to a different type of system, and so maybe there won't be a whole lot that comes out of that. We'll see. Basically, you're asking why weren't there any charges against the father, so you're talking about Harvey. There's a video I did a while back ago, probably, I don't know, 9 months ago. If you look up Harvey, indicators of Harvey's involvement, I covered that as well. So I think that there is sufficient evidence to go after him as well. But what we're looking at is it appears that they just want to go one at a time. So think about it also. For those of you that are discouraged, do you realize that, let's see, back when I first started on talking about this with John about 2 years ago, there was really nobody that came forward and said there was any evidence and to go after Wendy, and that none of the other Adelsons would be arrested. Charlie was already arrested at the time this happened, but they said, well, it's taken so long, and they just must not have any interest in pursuing that. And anyway, when you start looking at the evidence that's out there through the sunshine laws of Florida, that allow us to look at anything from digital videos of interviews to the actual police reports themselves, then we can make our own conclusion and talk about it and how much evidence there is out there to see. Because if we didn't have the sunshine laws in effect, we would really not have anything to talk about in detail, because we just wouldn't know the details of the case. But thanks to the sunshine law, we do see the details and we can make our own assessments of it. Lauren Crime, you're saying, since Donna's presumed innocent and jail is supposed to be a temporary holding place, shouldn't she be entitled to appropriate medical care and decent conditions, even though she's obviously guilty? Well, yes, she will be entitled to adequate medical care. Is it going to be the best care that she can get in Miami? Let's say no, she's not going to be able to go to these top of the line specialists and whatnot and pay cash or have the best insurance money can buy. No, she's jail is not a fun place to be. And think about it, most rich people that can afford to bond out. And so normally she'd be in a position where she could bond out and not have to be in those conditions. But when even wealthy people are accused of murdering someone, guess what? Conditions of bond can many times be denied. And in her case, because she tried to flee the country, right as her on the heels of Charlie's conviction, she has that conscience of guilt with flight to avoid prosecution. And she even talked about it. We have her on jail calls talking about how she'd even talked to Rashbaum. It was like, hey, do you think I should leave the country? What do you think they're going to do to arrest me? And, Rashbaum, according to her, never told her not to. And, this might be your only chance to do it. So, and we know the Leon County State Attorney's Office rushed to get the warrant filed that day and signed off by Judge Everett to get her arrested at the airport. So, I mean, she was almost gone. If she'd have been gone with Harvey, they would never have prosecuted her, and they probably wouldn't have had the effort to do that. So it came that close to them being that flat-footed. But thankfully, they're still going after her, and expect more arrests down the road. Postpartum for days, you're asking, do I think the judge will rule on these motions rather quickly? I think they have hearing dates already set up for the motions. I covered that in my last segment, at least for deadlines, and then the actual hearing dates, they will set a window for that. So a lot of these will be bunched together, and they'll actually have some evidence presented on them. Like the Arthur hearing definitely has to have some evidence presented. And these other ones, like the mistreatment by the medical personnel, and what's the status of some of these allegations of assault by Donna, that kind of stuff, they're going to have witnesses for that as well. So There's going to be a number of hearings between now and the trial date. I can assure you that. As I just said, Sarah Howard, I think it's going to be after the conviction of Donna. So I don't think they're going to pursue anything before that. Sad to say, it should have been done many years ago, but they just don't have that kind of fire in their belly. Yes, I do think Harvey will be arrested. And Nancy, you're saying how much money do you think the Adelsons have spent between Charlie and Donna so far? I mean, you're talking about probably a couple $1 million when you're talking about defensive trial, defense to get appellate attorneys involved as well. I mean, you're talking about several $1 million. I mean, it could be two and a half, easily 2.5 million. We'll see. Junebug, you're asking, do I think one of the reasons they haven't picked up Wendy yet is to see if somebody will flip on her? That's one of the things I may be hoping for. But when you got family members involved and as tight as they are and how much they're all involved in this equally, I just don't see that happening. Chloe's mom, I don't think Harvey's in Texas with Wendy and the boys. I think he's still back at their high rise in Miami. That's my understanding. Uh, Tara Allen, you're saying since she will not get out due to the history of fleeing and talk of suicide, she is foolish to have put herself in solitary for nothing. Yeah, I think it was like she had to pick her poison. Have my lawyers complain, and then that's going to maybe put me in solitary, and then I may never get out of solitary. And so I think it was the conditions and the threats were bad enough that she had to realize she's going to go back in the spider hole, and it's miserable either way. But at least if she's in solitary, she's physically not going to have something happen to her where she's beat up or put in a hospital with broken bones and whatnot. So you say, just to clarify, you believe Wendy's just as guilty, if not more, than the rest of the family? Oh, absolutely. I mean, the evidence is there. It's a different type of evidence. It's not the same as you know we're hearing, for example, Charlie on the wire intercepts that the FBI did when he was talking to Donna. But no, it's just more. You got to look at different types of evidence. It's more of the minute detail type of stuff, but altogether, it does paint a very solid picture of involvement. Patricia, you're asking if Donna's mental state deteriorates, how much did it affect her sentencing, assuming she'll be convicted? Well, she's convicted of first degree murder. She's doing life without parole, just like Kitty McBanwell, just like Sigfredo Garcia. She'll never see the light of day unless she does some kind of cooperation that could possibly open that window and have the life without parole part of her life sentence be removed. So she may do life with parole eligibility after a certain number of years. Yeah, Junebug, you're saying that it sounds good, but if you say Lacasse or somebody that's not in an important ones won't die or become incapacitated in some ways, they're just taking big risks. I hope they get her. Yeah, I mean I wouldn't want to wait on the health of all these different witnesses to go after Wendy. I mean, you got to go after them, and you know what? The bottom line is they will get a conviction. They're not going to get a hung jury or a mistrial. So they're just not aggressive enough, in my opinion. Melissa Navon, you're saying, what's my guess is why the prosecution not moves faster, trying them one at a time, afraid of their money connections, makes no sense. We could have had them all wrapped up. Yeah, I mean, I think it's lack of confidence in themselves, lack of ability to size up the evidence, and look at how they've been able to do it. I mean, they should have realized the conflict is an issue there, but the very fact that Jack Campbell said publicly that we couldn't have done anything about removing Rashbaum as Wendy's attorney, excuse me, Wendy, Donna's attorney, when they actually there was Supreme Court case all right on point that they could have found in 5 seconds. It just goes you to how flat-footed they are. So flat-footed is a nice way to say it. That they just don't have the right the right things aligned up to go after them. And yeah, things like these rich people were afraid to have them crush us in court and that kind of stuff. Yeah, lawyers can be very easily intimidated at different times, different ways. And so anyway, that's no excuses, no excuses. If you can't do the job, then step aside. Arizona Char, you're asking, do I think it's possible there's a sealed indictment for Wendy awaiting for the end of Donna's trial? That's a possibility, but I don't think they've gone that far because I think that Donna didn't have her arrest warrant filled out when she was trying to flee the country. They had to rush through it that day. So unless they've learned no lesson from that, hopefully they have. But I don't know. I'm just thinking they're just going plugging along very slow, and they don't have much drive or energy. So just sort of a low energy prosecution effort. Yeah, Robin here saying, Dakota Rashbaum, you can try. I don't remember exact details what he said, but just like something along those lines, what Rashbaum supposedly said. And so, yeah, that can be something. One of the things I will say I give the prosecution credit for is that they called all these attorneys as witnesses. They had them subpoenaed to show how all these attorneys were being interconnected during after the 2016 arrest of Sigfredo and also the Luis Rivera, after he was also charged with that. He was already serving for time in the Fed, so there wasn't him being pulled off the streets. But I think it's very, very interesting how they made that move to call these attorneys to say how they're trying to coordinate and alerting. You know, why would Adelson lawyers be talking to the folks that got arrested for being the actual hitmen, right? Why would they be talking about deals and hey, Adelsons aren't talking, so don't your guys talk either. So yeah, it's definitely absolute proof as an alert in my mind. That's absolute proof you have a guilty parties with the Adelsons. And Florida Adelsons, I might clarify. All right, Linda, you're saying glad I'm saying Harvey will be arrested in 22. I'm okay. I'm not saying they will for sure. I'm saying they better be, and I expect them to be. Okay. I don't have any inside knowledge, so don't make it look like I do, because I'm just saying based on the evidence, where the evidence leads one to go and have a reasonable conclusion. There's involvement by all those Florida Adelsons. Yeah, it's like you're Deb Brock, you're talking about aches and pains here. I just think that, yeah, the lack of regard for what the rest of the Markells are suffering is just they didn't care what happened to any of the Markells. They didn't care what even happened to the boys. Think about it. The boys weren't even considered of this as well, the suffering that they would go through. And it's just not a suffering that lasts days, weeks, or months. This is a lifelong trauma that will significantly affect the boys and how they develop into young men and how they become old men. All this will be something that is something that has such an adverse effect that they have to overcome. And in a way, you never fully overcome it. It was always something that that trauma lives with you the rest of your life. Well, yeah, if she gets medically bad enough condition where she needs to like, if she becomes has dementia or something like that, yeah, she'd be put in some kind of state facility and psych facility. And I talked to somebody that knows about those places, and they are not a good place to be. They are worse. Imagine the worst nursing home. They'd probably be worse than that. um, Sorry, Snake Hips. You make me laugh with your name. It's all about the choices. Shouldn't Harvey be incarcerated as well due to the fact that his funds being used to pull off the crime? Yeah, I mean, there's more than that. Just not the funds, but um, reason I'm laughing about Snake Hips is that's what my 100-year-old grandma used to call a burglar that would was regularly hitting her place. And we knew who it was because he was dealing drugs, drug dealer stealing her antiques. So anyway, he finally got busted. But in any event, yeah, it is about choices, and yeah, it is also about choice about the prosecution. The prosecution needs to make some choices here and be more aggressive, right? Julia Lucas, you're saying I watched Wendy's police interview again, and she missed going down Trescott, but when she gets on stand, she says she didn't go down Trescott. Yeah, and it was blocked like a mile and a half back at that intersection. Yeah, please don't block it entire mile and a half in a residential area. She's like an expensive Turkish rug. Yeah, I mean it's you just anyway, just quite bizarre. Yeah, look at her police interview, then look at her testimony on the witness stand. I mean, if that doesn't convince you of her involvement, nothing will. Shanika's 2 cents. You're saying no parole in Florida since 1983. That's I think you're talking about for murder one. There's no parole, but they do have some cooperation statutes, just like the feds. The feds have a mandatory minimum for many sentences as well that you get convicted for, and in the end, you can have some kind of cooperation exception to that. So Florida would have the same kind of thing. Yeah, Sir Howard, thank God for the generous person who alerted the FBI about Donna Harvey's flight to Vietnam. That is true because think about it, the low energy that the prosecution has right now. Do you think they'd spend the effort to go after him? Probably not. And from being in Vietnam, yeah, most people can get extradited back, but if you got a lot of money and you can keep the politicians paid off, then maybe they wouldn't cooperate. Maybe they could have been home free for the rest of their lives. But BS, you're asking, will the threats be the same for her in the big house? No, they're going to be much more serious and significant and severe. And she can try to go into some kind of protective custody thing there, but even there, she's going to be the purple unicorn. She's going to stick out like a sore thumb. Everybody's going to know her as like the grandma killer and stuff like that. And I'm sorry, it's you can't make this stuff up. Yeah, Nana of 9, you're saying, I remember Donna telling Charlie you're on a phone call about the bump, and Donna said, your dad's coming down. I want him to know. How much does Charlie really know? Well, we know he knows enough about it because the indicators are there. If you look at the video I did, there's enough indicators are there to show his involvement. Plus, his family, the Florida Adelsons, they all did as a pact to keep Charlie. What they didn't want to tell Charlie, this is what folks got to distinguish. They look at some phrase like that. And, well, see, Harvey didn't know about it. They were saying, hey, he's coming down the hall. Let's keep it quiet. Well, no, it had to do with the bump. The bump was the thing that was going to make Harvey blow a gasket. That's what they didn't want him knowing about until they were able to assure Harvey, oh yeah, by the way, last week, some stranger approached me and gave me a newspaper front page headlines of Dan Markel being murdered, and they said they know I'm involved in it. And I'm like, they did what? I mean, can you imagine Harvey, the way he freaked out when he first learned about that? They eventually had to tell him, and they made it sound like they made it go away to him and made it sound like it was, oh, it's not a big deal and all that kind of stuff. And as Charlie always says, so trust me on this. Trust, that's not how it works, right? So they had to like get a lid on this thing first before they could tell Harvey. Of course, Harvey knew about this whole murder thing, that was part of his birthday present, right? Not only did you get a murder of Professor Markel, but they gutted the boys' last names of Markel and changed it to Adelson. I mean, how cruel can you get? It's Lacoste is a victim of this might be. I'm sorry. All the way to Miami, Austin, Washington, didn't stop to see Donna. No, she actually would have driven really close to Tallahassee. That's a good point. But she never saw. Copa's saying, I have to believe that Georgia is waiting on the day as much as we are. Well, unless Jack Campbell's tying her hands down, I don't know. I don't know how you sleep at night, go on vacation, and live a normal life knowing this kind of stuff's going on. So I just don't get that. Humorous sport, you're saying they're afraid of mixed verdicts like Katie's first joint trial. No, sorry. As a prosecutor, if you're afraid to go to trial, I'm sorry. I didn't have a lot of sleep last night, so you guys are really cracking me up. I think I got to stop. You guys are on a roll here. CC, you're saying Wendy thinks she's the smartest one in the room in court. I can't wait for arrest. Yeah, I tell you what, I think the last time Georgia went after her more, I think the 2 times she testified before that, she walked out of courtroom thinking she's unscathed. I think she realized that she did bad. And then we also heard that her attorney told her, you really did bad on the stand and in the parking lot. So assuming that's true, then, I think she's really going to be nervous and shaking in her shoes when she comes to court to testify this next time. Yeah, I know you guys are talking some about the boys. I'm just going to skip that though. Okay, Julia Lucas, you're saying Donna's trying to come up with a defense, but there is none. What can she say? Charlie threatened my life. What would compel a mom to help a son conspire to commit murder? Yeah, there's no defense. I mean, it's so obvious she's involved in it, and so it's just sad that she wasn't prosecuted many years ago, and they didn't try a bunch of Adelsons together in the same joint trial, or at least in a daisy chain sequential fashion in quick order. Charge them all within a few months of each other if you're afraid to try them all in one trial. Thanks, Sarah. That's sweet of you. Appreciate that. Yes, we do. Yeah, Wendy's doe-eyed expression on the stand. Yeah, that was very much terrible acting job. All right, just jumping along here. Yeah, I tell you, that's another good way to say it. They were terrified that Harvey would find out that Charlie botched the plan. So yeah, that's true. They had to reassure him. Oh no, it's not. There's nothing to worry about, Dad. Don't worry about it. Uh, Haptic frequencies in the age of YouTube, having legal minds willing to speak on cases like this to educate the public. Do you think attorneys ever check the? I can't see what that is. Check the is that thermometer or something? I can't see what that is. Themselves up to criticism and insight from other legal minds. I'm not sure exactly what you mean there, but I don't know. I think I don't really look at what other attorneys say about this case or other cases for the most part, but once in a while I see little clips here and there on YouTube. And so we're all entitled to our own opinions. So, I have my own opinions, and based on my experience, I have pretty firm convictions on what I see. And if I don't have a firm conviction, then I keep an open mind until I do have the evidence to look at. But you can really look at something even just a short amount of time and have the experience to know the outcome and the expected outcome. And so that's why I don't need to see a case from start to finish, or I don't need to look at a police report from start to finish. There's certain things that just light off the page for me. And I just, my instincts just kick in, and I know exactly how things happen and where things are headed, and how to handle it the right way. So that's the way I look at it. It's just the comments were making me laugh. That's why I was laughing here a little bit before. I couldn't help it. Yes, that's true. That's true, Paula. Nope, I've not been in the whiskey, so I'm not drinking here. Yeah, John's got that right. John knows about the snake hits comments. So when I saw that, actually seen you before, and I think I've called you before, but I've been able to contain myself before. But tonight it was it was something that I had to bust a gut on. Bugs Bunny's brother is asking, is it George's call to prosecute or sit Campbell's call? Ultimately, it rests with Campbell. So if we don't know if George has been trying to do it, and ultimately Jack Campbell says no, we're not doing it, or if they both are thinking the same thing, but ultimately the buck stops with Jack Campbell. Yeah, CH, you're saying don't forget Harvey couldn't even look people in the face at the funeral. Yeah, he was. Why would he do that? I think you're right on that. You guys haven't seen me laugh like this since Rashwan's opening statement. That was just hilarious when he started talking. When he couldn't get to it took him 40 some minutes before he told the story of what actually happened to get Charlie accused of murder, and then he starts talking about traffic jams and all that kind of stuff. It's like I knew it's game over. That's a sign that the lawyer knows he's guilty, and I'm surprised Rashwan didn't start laughing himself when he started talking. What a ridiculous story he was trying to tell the jury. Nobody would believe that story. Nobody. That's the most insane story I've ever heard in any kind of trial. Lon, like you're saying, Charlie seemed genuinely mystified by the TV code. Do you think this was something just between Donna and Wendy? Yeah, I don't. I'm trying to remember what Charlie said about the code. Why he was mystified. I think he was the most thing. The biggest thing he was mystified is how the fact that he thought Katie just used Sigfredo Garcia. He had no idea this Luis Rivera character took part in it as well. And so when the bump happened, the bump assumed that he knew that there was two hitmen, right? And so that's why I think they're scratching their heads and are trying to figure, well, how is this that there's another guy involved? We didn't know about it. And we don't know, of course, if Katie actually confessed that to Charlie. My guess is that she did not tell him about this other Luis Rivera because I think that might have broken any kind of like agreement and trust that Charlie had committed with Katie that you cannot tell anybody else. It's Sigfredo. You got to let me know if anything's going sideways. And here she's openly letting Luis Rivera be part of this as well. So she didn't want to have to answer those questions, and so that's why I think that Charlie's generally thrown off. I think he's also probably thrown off by the whole thing with Wendy driving by the house. So, that's the thing. He planned this murder with 8 of others, and you don't know what others are always going to do. You can't keep control of their actions, and their actions really help sink them. Now, part of it, Charlie's own actions sunk himself as well. The way he kept on talking with the FBI recording every second of it. Sarah, I agree. She's in for a rude awakening. If she thinks Leon County jail is rough, wow. All right. Just looking through some of these comments saying I'm about my laughing. So yeah, yeah, that's another way to say it. Harley definitely knew Charlie wanted to ease it and tell him about it at the dinner at Dulce Vita when Charlie was spooked by the FBI investigator and whispered in Harvey's ear. Nine of nine, you're saying Charlie does not have a chance at an appeal and the whole truth will come out. He'll turn on Wendy. Yeah, I think he has a good shot at an appeal, but he'll be retried, and in the end, it'll stick. So yeah, in the end, I agree with you. You won't have a chance of anything to let him ever see the light of day outside of a prison yard. Uh, Samich girl, you're saying I have zero sympathy for Donna. Zero. Well, they're accusing in this defense motion, they're accusing the prison staff, basically, or the jail staff, I should say, as treating Donna cruelly and allowing her to be suffering medically, and they can't protect her and all this kind of stuff. So, I mean, I don't. I guess we don't want to see a 75-year-old lady beat up in jail, obviously, but yeah, part of it's like that's part of the poison pill you chose when you signed up to this murder. The hate was unmitigated, and now it's coming back, circling back your way, and it's coming crashing down your head. And it's going to get worse, Donna. It's going to get worse. Annie LaVillian, I have to say, with no other arrest, Tallahassee's the worst. Yeah, Tallahassee. I mean, that's sort of like, wow, it's such a beautiful place. It's the state capital of Florida, one of the largest populated states in America, and yeah, it's just to think that they can't handle a murder like this. That the bumbling bozos of that conspired in this murder for Professor Markel haven't been all arrested and convicted yet. It's just unbelievable. Yeah, that's that's what happened. The courtroom cleared out when Harvey started. So Charlie started testifying and went on and on and on. It was like uh, people left in droves. It was ridiculous. It was game over at that point. I've never seen a defendant have a worse testimony. And talk about just absolute torture listening to that guy talk. So full of himself. Had a slick, glib answer for every single thing he said. And I mean, he's even like pushing back and sort of like being a smart aleck to Georgia and stuff like that. I mean, that is like so bad. I was like wearing my defense counsel hat, watching that. I'm just like cringing the entire time because it was that bad. I'm just like going, oh my gosh. It's like what I would do if I had to defend it that bad and the story was that bad, I would like try to like keep it short and not go on for an 8-hour direct examination. I've never heard of an 8-hour direct examination on any kind of crime. And then you put Charlie on there as well. It's like, oh my gosh, that is like, um, anyway, it's why the courtroom cleared out. But the jurors were held captive. they're they were basically being extorted, having to listen to that absolute garbage story, fairy tale story from outer space. Yeah, until Cross. That's right, Copa. The gallery cleared out. People were like so bored and disgusted with Charlie's story that until cross examination was going to happen, like, hey, we're checking out. So, yeah, and the stare down was also very good. That was a key moment. And that also led the jury look at when the jury sees that, from my experience, that somebody like Luis Rivera, who actually was right there when the murder happened, and this is one bad evil dude, but he actually had more character and credibility than any of the Adelsons, right? So when he did the stare down at Charlie, and I'm sure some of the jurors looked at that and go, "Wow, Charlie couldn't look at the guy, but this guy looks at Charlie, knowing he's the one that started um, this whole plan of action to get the murder consummated." Janie Garner, you're asking, do I think Detective Isom regrets not being harder on Wendy during the interview? The I think there's got to be some regrets on there. I mean, the the questioning was so softball, and he could have cornered her more. I mean, part of it also is I think it was what 23 minutes into the interview, he'd already cleared Wendy, and he started treating her like a victim. He brought a victim witness coordinator in there. I mean, he had Wendy scared, and if he knows that she's going to ride all the way back in a squad car back to the jailhouse uh, at the police station there and not invoke counsel, I think he was really worried about maybe her invoking counsel, and so he was probably trying to go more gingerly for that reason. But I think he really, after 23 minutes, thought, she's not a part of this. So anyway, the crocodile tears and whatnot. It was just, I think he had no clue as to how to deal with somebody like her. Postmark for Days asking, has I ever seen someone be arrested after they leave the stand after testifying? Trying to think of an actual arrest. I've had people lie and they get busted and lying under oath during their testimony, and then they basically invoke the fifth as a victim, and then they start crying, and then no, the prosecutors don't arrest them at that point or have them arrested, but they really should. So that's the closest I've seen to it. Sir Tedrick Walker, Wendy is the mastermind of this crime and has the most benefit from this. Yeah, that's what I think. Absolutely agree with you on that. 205 Ken, you're saying him dropping his head on the table and looking as pale as a ghost was the most memorable part of me. That's the other thing I can emphasize, that, I've sat through so many different court martials and civilian criminal trials that I can look at a jury and read the jury's behavior when they come out of the deliberation room and back into the courtroom, and a lot of it has to do with how they look at the defendant or not, and whether they're in a good mood or not. If they're convicting somebody, they are all serious. They are not smiling. They're just coming in there to do a job and they don't want to look at the defendant. But if they're coming in there smiling, carrying on, it's like, hey, we're happy to go home. We're just going to get this thing announced and we're going to leave. And they're feeling real at ease. You can just feel the lack of any tension. But if they come in the room tense and they're serious, guess what? Your client's going down. So, in any event, Charlie and his reaction also, that's the other thing. The reaction of the defendant also lets you know whether the client was guilty or not. So if you just lay your head down like Charlie was no shock. There's no like, what? There was no like, just like stunned unbelief. Like he thought he's going home. And then he's like, finds out that happened, that he's convicted of all these charges. He'd be like completely freaking out and shocking in his reaction, and be looking at Rosh and saying, "What the heck happened?" and all that kind of. No, he just put his head down. It's like, "Hey, the light didn't work. Excuse me, I spent all this money and nothing happened." So, yeah, that's the other telling sign is the way he reacted to this. Paralegal Mandy, you're saying, did Charlie go back to the Midwest prison since Tanya's trial was postponed? I hope he gets extra free flights on Con Air. I heard the snacks are pretty good. Yeah, I don't think they are offered any snacks, frankly, and so I doubt he's getting any good snacks. And I think he's already back to South Dakota. That's what I've heard. So yeah, he would have been flown back somewhere near South Dakota. I don't think the plane would actually landed in Sioux Falls where he's at, but maybe it would have landed in Kansas City or something. And they would have busted him up the rest of the way. Robin Hood, you're saying I think he'll turn after his mom has passed. That's what I've said in the beginning. I said as soon as Donna dies and his appeals are exhausted, it's game over. He's going after Wendy. His life goal will be, I think, not even to see the boys, but just gets Wendy convicted, and that's the way he could see the boys. So you can see it's going to be like the equalizer for him. So Wendy's going to get her just punishment, and then he's also going to try to get some time shaved off so he can see his I said boys, I think, but his son, his one son. Yeah, it took 10 years. The poor Markel family's coming down and all that. Yeah, it's just what a sad thing for Phil and Ruth and Shelly and the rest of the family. Wow, Andreas, I hope that's not the case. The only way they'll arrest and convict Wendy is if I'm hired by the district attorney's office. Um, yeah, they call it state attorney's office down there, but I'm not licensed there. I guess they could bring me on special counsel or something, but I don't. Gosh, it shouldn't have to come to that, really. There's enough people that can look at the evidence and can prosecute it. Yeah, this has been really cruel to Markel. So, as I've said before, I know that Phil and Ruth watch this channel, so shout out to them, and we all have our support for them, and we believe that in the end they're going to see justice. We cannot give up hope. We believe the prosecution is going to do the right thing. They're just not quick enough, but they will eventually, at their snail's pace, get the job done. That's the way a lot of people look at it. Jazz, Dobie. Why should anyone have sympathy on Donna? She brought it on herself. Okay. Um, Snake hips. I'm going to look at your question. I'm going to start laughing. Yeah, Charlie was so confident during his trial. I mean, I've never seen a defendant so confident and cocky about a charge of like murder, any felony for that matter. He was just absolutely just enjoying testifying. He just loved it to have his story be told. Arnos. Hmm. All right. Eric Norgard, you're saying that he also have to be in the Guinness Book of Records for the record for family with the most extortions, right? Yeah, I mean, um, that's it's like I say, what they call an extortion. I wish Georgia would have called it out properly. Is a robbery by payment plan. So that's what it really was. That's not extortion. Extortion, it doesn't meet the definition of it. So that would have made it look even more of a joke. Thanks, JC. Support and love to Markells. Justice will come soon. Here's a little banner that I had earlier, if you noticed tonight. That was actually suggested by as an option to click on the StreamYard software I use. So it's not something I even created. I guess I just have some kind of AI thing that follows what the purpose of this channel is. So that's pretty cool. Okay. Here we have Carrie Lane. You're asking, can Donna ask her attorneys what a good defense would be, or does she have to dream it up like Charlie did? That's the way it's supposed to work is your client tells you the story. If I'm a defense attorney and somebody's come to me, they tell me what happened. That's something that I'm not coaching them on. They have to tell me what the truth is, and based on what they tell me, do I always get the truth initially? No. Sometimes I confront my client, say, "Look, I know something else actually happened, and you're actually making it more difficult for yourself." Because a lot of clients will come in there and think that they know the best way to defend themselves is not to admit X, Y, and Z. But what they don't realize is that by admitting X, Y, and Z to me, I actually can make sure that they never get convicted of anything. So, because the truth is actually on the side, it's like when clients try to minimize something or twist it around. That's uh, that's what um, that's what gets them in trouble. And that's why somebody like Katie, I would have no problem with somebody like Katie getting her to flip on the Adelsons. So I just believe that if there's a will, there's a way. There's experience that'll bear out because what I mean, so Katie basically couldn't be convinced by three different attorneys that she was making the worst decision in probably the history of plea bargains in American history or world history. I mean, that's like I've never heard of something so ridiculous. So let's see here. What else? Happy 24/7. You're saying Charlie claimed he was shaking in his Lambo with fear, hence extortion. But what the FBI did was more of a pay me or I'll tell blackmail. What Charlie did makeup doesn't exist. No term applies. Yeah, it doesn't apply. You don't have somebody extorting you for something you haven't done. So it was just preposterous. And the prosecution didn't look up the term or know the term what extortion really is. Yeah, we have books, the Book of Ruths as well. So very compelling read. Snake Hips 76. If Donna goes to jail and her dad dies and leaves her a bunch of money, is she allowed to access that money while in prison? So if Donna goes to jail and her dad dies, um, I guess, are you talking about Wendy goes to jail and her dad, Donna goes to jail and her, I think you mean her, I guess maybe you're talking about Harvey me instead of her dad. Did you mean to say her dad dies and leaves her a bunch of money? Is she allowed to access that money in prison? I think everything is in trust, so everything is going to be handled with no access to lawsuits to be able to get a wrongful death verdict against the actions of any of the Adelsons, because everything's in trust and protected that way. But so I think what's going to happen though, eventually the money's going to run out. If they go after all these Adelsons and once they exhaust their appeals and everything, basically they'll burn through their millions of dollars. So I think that's gonna be the ultimate outcome of this. Yeah, layaway extortion story. Yeah, it's not an extortion though. Definitely not extortion. How many more years before Wendy gets her just desserts? Getting crazy. It's been crazy. I guess after Donna gets convicted. So we'll see. We'll see. Yeah. So I think what happens is also going back to this question about Donna's good defense would be, what happens is when you have a client coming in telling you a story, this is what they want, you to present, and they got a lot of money. If you start telling, hey, that's not going to fly, you might want to cut a deal. You might want to flip on some other witnesses. I can shave off your sentence by a huge portion. Just give me a chance to negotiate. They can't have that conversation with somebody who's got a lot of money and somebody that's definitely elderly and doesn't have a lot to bargain with, because you don't have a lot of years to bargain. They can't go in there and say, hey, we'll knock off. If Wendy flips on everybody, including Harvey, excuse me, if Donna flips on everybody, including Wendy and Harvey, can we shave her sentence down to 30 years? That's something you might see in a normal case, except you got somebody that's 75 years old now. So that's why that's not going to happen. Donna doesn't have life to leverage for her attorney to use. And so with that being the case, she really has nothing to do except roll the dice and go to trial. And then she's going to be found guilty of murder one and the other accompanying charges as well. Yeah, Angela Scardina, you're saying, can the trust be broken? No, it cannot. Trusts are, it's in a legal entity separate and apart from the Adelson, so that's why they can't. Have it pilfered and accessed by a lawsuit. Yeah, I just jumped on tonight. It was only a couple hours notice, and then I moved the time up. Originally, it was 9:15, then based on some stuff that changed in the schedule for Leslie and I decided to move it up to 8 o'clock Central Time. Snake Hips, you're saying, I think that in the end, Donna and Charlie will rat out Wendy in the end when they realize that they're going to rot there. Yeah, I don't know about Donna, but yeah, they could just decide, you know what? But Donna doesn't have anything to gain, really. They're not going to shave her sentence off, life without parole. Just I guess they theoretically could, but what are they going to give her, 5 years? Is she going to agree to 5 years? I mean, 5 years is like a death sentence for somebody that's 75. I mean, theoretically, she could live over to 100, right? But I'm telling you, with the prison, the way it reacts, the threats, the food, the lack of quality sleep, the lack of proper hygiene, the lack of good medical care. You're getting medical care, but it's not that great. All that kind of stuff is going to really put a lot of wear and tear on a person, let alone somebody 75 that's been used to living the high life. Kathy Barella saying it has to be very expensive to keep Laura on a retention. You're talking about John Laura, the attorney of many years for Wendy Adelson, and that guy's. I mean, he is super expensive. I think he's like $2,000 an hour. So keep in mind, he was reaching out to folks on YouTube that were making comments and reaching them out to them and saying, "Hey, you better knock it off." So he was spending that for the Adelsons to have kind of money to have a lawyer trolling YouTube comments. I mean, that's really a wasted effort that they were that desperate to try to silence people on talking about this. Yes, they will, and they will in the near future, not the future distant, many years down the road kind of future. Yeah, Marines 100. I agree with you. Cannon on a hill. It seems rude of you to call the prosecution low energy. Well, that's what me as a experienced criminal attorney, prosecutor, defense attorney, and knowing what the evidence is they have in their files, and you can't justify this as being a reasonable pace prosecution, okay? And if it's not a reasonable pace, that's sort of a nice thing to say is I got low energy because I could say a whole lot worse, but I won't. So I'll just be nice and call it low energy because somebody with high energy would not sleep at night and they would be like, "going, I am not going to let another Adelson uh, be walking the streets without them facing justice." Cannon on Hill, I might prove to you some info. Uh, I do get some info and tips and leads sometimes from different folks. So yes, I do have that, but I can't disclose that. But once in a while, I get something like that. All right, let's see. I'm gonna look for a couple more comments, and we'll. Yeah, this is live. Somebody's asking. This is live. Tammy Irwin, you're saying what I don't understand is why they tried Garcia and Katie together. Why didn't they also try Donna and Charlie together and throw Wendy in the mix too? That's something that I just scratching my head at, and yeah, there was a question they're asking about going to the trial. Um, there's a possibility that that Leslie and I will go to the trial, but the thing is, it's almost like watching Charlie's all over again. It's almost like so much a disappointment. You're taking the time, money, effort, but we probably will be there, and it'll probably be something along the lines of going like just to see the closing arguments and seeing the outcome there because yeah, I haven't got to see Wendy testify, for example, and any of the other trials, and so anyway, that's something we would like to see, but don't know what's going to happen with that just yet, and yeah, Carmen, you're asking. It's not showing up here. Okay, maybe when he's planning on fleeing the country. I mean, that anything's a possibility. I just think he's thinking she's off the hook for now, and will stay that way. So yeah, Angela Scardina's asking how long before this is a Hollywood movie or documentary entitled "How to Get a Life Sentence in Three Easy Steps." Yeah, it's like you can't make this stuff up. I mean, I think Hollywood look at the script and like, there's no way people are going to believe this is real. I mean, you can use Charlie's defense in a movie script or TV series or documentary. I guess a documentary you could, but not a movie because this is too so far fetched garbage. Blake Inkster, you're asking, what is the new prosecution strategy might we see against Donna? I mean, it's going to be the same kind of thing they did against Charlie, and that's why they should have done um, the same defendants together at the same defense counsel table. And they have the new evidence, of course, of her fleeing, and they may use some of the jail call intercepts. But yeah, Fly Guy and Blue Sky, Charlie's assets are all in trust, and they're probably set up for his son and maybe his parents or something like that. Bark Bulletin of Georgia was a county prosecutor, I believe, should go after Wendy aggressively. Yeah, it's a state attorney office, so it's not quite county or district, but it's actually a higher level. It's through the state. So I don't know for sure how much Georgia has control over the lack of prosecution, but I just it's just too much to understand and comprehend why this is considered reasonable and how they can sleep at night. But anyway, um, yeah, it's true, Tay, that the case was stalled by a political figure. That's what it appears to be, that there was political influence with the previous state attorney before Jack Campbell. So in any event, but he's been long gone. So I think they need to he can't be used as an excuse anymore. So anyway, with that, I'm going to go ahead and close it off for tonight. So thanks for your great interest and support of the Just for Raquel efforts. And we'll talk again if there's a motion that's played out. And hold on a second. So with that being said, have a great week, and we'll see you next time back on here. Normally, I come on Sunday nights, sometimes Friday nights as well. So based on this motion that was recently filed, decided to jump on tonight. So y'all take care and be safe.